Cari fratelli e sorelle, buongiorno e benvenuti.
Dear brothers and sisters, good morning and welcome.
Continuiamo a riflettere sugli anziani.
Today we continue our reflection on the elderly, on our grandparents, on old age.
Sembra brutta la parola,
It seems like an unpleasant word, but the elderly are great and wonderful.
Ci lasceremo ispirare dallo splendido libro di Ruth.
Today we will let ourselves be inspired by the splendid Book of Ruth, a jewel of the Bible. The parable of Ruth sheds light on the beauty of family bonds generated by the relationship of a couple, but which go beyond it. Bonds of love, capable of being equally strong, in which the perfection of that polyhedron of fundamental affections that make up the family grammar of love shines. This grammar brings vital lymph and generative wisdom to the set of relationships that build up the community.
Rispetto al Cantico dei Cantici, il libro di Ruth è come l'altra tavola del dittico dell'amore nuziale.
With regard to the Canticle of Canticles, the Book of Ruth is like the other panel in the diptych of nuptial love. Just as important, just as essential, it indeed celebrates the power and the poetry that must inhabit the bonds of generation, kinship, devotion, and fidelity that involve the entire family constellation, and which even become capable in the dramatic conjunctures in the life of a couple of bringing an unimaginable power of love, able to relaunch hope and the future. We know that cliches about the bonds of kinship created by marriage, especially between the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law, which speak against this perspective. But precisely for this reason, the Word of God becomes precious. The inspiration of faith can open up a horizon of witness that counters the most common prejudices, a horizon that is precious for the entire human community. I invite you to rediscover the Book of Ruth, especially in the meditation on love and in the Catechesis on the family. This short book also contains valuable teaching on the alliance of the generations, where youth shows itself to be capable of restoring enthusiasm to mature age, and old age discovers it is capable of reopening the future to a wounded youth. At the beginning, the elderly Naomi, although moved by the affection of her daughters-in-law, widowed by her two sons, is pessimistic with regard to their destiny within a population that is not their own. She therefore affectionately encourages the young women to return to their families, to rebuild their lives. They were young widows. She says, "I can do nothing for you." This already appears to be an act of love. The elderly woman, without a husband and without her sons, insists that her daughters-in-law abandon her. However, it is also a sort of resignation. There is no possible future for the foreign widows without the protection of a husband. And Ruth knows this, and she resists this generous offer. She doesn't want to go back to her own home. The bond she has established between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was blessed by God. Naomi cannot ask to be abandoned. At first, Naomi appears more resigned than happy about this offer. Perhaps she thinks that this strange bond will aggravate the risk for both of them. In some cases, the tendency of the elderly towards pessimism needs to be countered by the affectionate pressure of the young. Indeed, Naomi, moved by Ruth's devotion, will emerge from her pessimism and even take the initiative, opening up a new future for Ruth. She instructs and encourages Ruth, her widow's son, to win a new husband in Israel. Boaz, the candidate, shows his nobility defending Ruth from the men in his employ. Unfortunately, this is a risk that still exists today. Ruth's new marriage is celebrated and the worlds are again pacified. The women of Israel tell Naomi and Ruth, the foreigner, is worth more than 7 sons, and that the marriage will be a blessing of the Lord. Noemi, he was full of bitterness. They say the name Naomi means bitterness. And in her old age, she will know the joy of having a part in the generation of a new birth. Look how many miracles accompany the conversion of this elderly woman. She converts to the commitment of making herself available with love for the future of a generation wounded by loss and at risk of abandonment. The points of reconstructions are those that, on the basis of the probability drawn by commonplace prejudices, ought to generate insuperable fractures. Instead, faith and love enable them to be overcome. The mother-in-law overcomes her jealousy of her own son. The jealousy of the mother-in-law for her own son. Loving Ruth's new bond, the women of Israel overcome their distrust of the foreigner. And if women will do it, everyone will. The vulnerability of the lone girl faced with male power is reconciled with a bond full of love and respect. And all this because the young Ruth is obstinate in her fidelity to a bond exposed to ethnic and religious prejudice. And I repeat once I say at the beginning, the mother-in-law is a mythical figure. The mother-in-law, I don't say that we don't say that she's something like the devil, but she has, mythically, she has this sort of reputation. But the mother-in-law is the mother of your husband or the mother of your wife. Let's think about this perception in society that the further away a mother-in-law is, the better. No, she's a mother. She's elderly. One of the most beautiful things about grandmothers is when they see grandchildren. When their children have children, they come alive again. Look at the relationship you have with your in-laws. And sometimes, yes, there are special relationships. They have given you the maternity, motherhood, at least make them happy so that they may face the elderly age with courage. But you mother-in-laws, I say, also be careful of your tongue, of what you say. Please be careful.
Ruth, in questo libro, accetta la suocera e la fa rivivere, e l'anziana Noemi assume l'iniziativa di riaprire il futuro per Ruth.
Naomi takes the initiative of reopening the future for Ruth instead of limiting herself to enjoying her support. If young people open themselves to gratitude for what they have received, and the elderly take the initiative of relaunching their future, nothing can stop the flourishing of God's blessings among peoples.
Mi raccomando,
Please, I say to you, to young people,
parlino con I nonni,
please
i
speak
giovani parlino
to
con I
your
vecchi,
grandparents. Please
e i
speak to
vecchi
the
parlino con
elderly,
I giovani.
and may the elderly
Questo ponte
also
dobbiamo
speak with the young
ristabilirlo
people.
forte.
We have to
C'è lì
reestablish this
una
dialogue.
corrente di salvezza e di
There is a
felicità.
current of salvation there and happiness.
Che il Signore ci aiuti
May the Lord help us to do this,
a crescere
to grow
in armonia
in
nelle
harmony
famiglie,
in our families,
quell'armonia costruttiva
that constructive
che va
harmony
dai vecchi ai più giovani.
that
Quel ponte
goes from the
bello
elderly to the young, that beautiful bridge
custodire e guardare.
which we have to
Grazie.
protect and guard. Thank you.